Hi everyone, this is Melanie and I learned things and I read a book. The book I read, it was a little over a week ago, was The Sword of Kaigen by Wang, and I loved it. So just a forewarning, I still learned stuff, I'm still trying to be objective, but you can learn things from what you love, and I loved it. Jumping right in, this story is a Japanese-based fantasy that takes place on a peninsula within a small, traditional village where the men are trained to be warriors and the women are most often wives and mothers. This is a book with element-based magic. If you know Avatar: The Last Airbender, it reminded me of that, but it was so much more and so much different in its own ways. A very emotional book, super grief, character driven, and very interesting, and just relationship driven especially. The two main characters are Mamoru. He's a 14-year-old boy who's training to be hopefully as good as, if not better than, his father as a swordsman and with his own magic. And then his mother, Misaki, she's amazing. And the book follows the two of them in their experience. This book I know has received some, honestly, a lot of it has been praised, but people either really liked it and it worked for them, or just didn't work for them but they appreciated it. I haven't really felt anyone hate on it as a whole. It is very emotional, character driven, and part of that is based on how it's structured, so I can understand that would be a little bit confusing or frustrating if you rely a lot on pacing and plot. I think for me, the action was excellent. There was a whole scene of a lot of fighting that I thought was so well done and very interesting for me. I have a hard time following fight scenes, but it worked all right for me. I think even more so though, I was thrilled by the relationships and seeing where they would go. What I learned from Mamoru and Misaki and other characters that you'll be introduced to, just one thing I learned is that sometimes it's easier for you to explore characters or have characters explore themselves by being introduced to each other in new ways. So for example, toward the beginning of the story, avoiding spoilers, Mamoru is in school, and as we know, school is often shaped to teach children a certain way. In this, in Kaigen, they're being taught that, certain propaganda, and he starts to wonder if it's true. He starts to ask questions. He can't really ask his father. It's kind of don't question your empire kind of situation. And his mother provides some answers. And he starts to learn about her, about a violent past that she experienced, and you get to read from her perspective how now with 4 children and duties as a noble woman, the wife of a powerful warrior and leader, she is in a position where she can't reveal her past or make it a part of her life, and her son starts to really get to know her. And I think those stories are really beautiful to me. I think it allows characters to grow and change because they're reacting to each other. A lot of the time, if characters alone and they're changing, it's harder to see why that is. If I'm alone, I'm not as likely to change and respond. When I'm interacting with other people, I reflect, I learn from, I listen to, I just react, and they react well to each other to create growth and intrigue about who they are, especially Misaki in her past and Mamoru in his exploration of what his future is meant to be, and how he's supposed to be an honorable warrior without tearing down everything that he knows and believes. So yeah, I would for myself, that means seeing how characters can incite change and conflict and inner conflict in ways where the characters might not know about each other that they're experiencing this, but we know and we get to watch it or read it. Another thing I recognize is that prose can be used. People, when you're learning to write in school or whatever, they'd tell you to use the 5 senses, and of course you should. I think that's a good basis, though. If you realize you're relying too much on sight or sound, see what the others have to offer. But even more than that, Emma Wang, she uses both the depth of the emotions and of the magic to give you a sense of the world and what's going on. The beauty of this magic system we get to experience is that it's like water-based. A lot of it's used in ice, but fishermen use it to gather fish. They use it to wash their clothes and dishes and things like that. It's quite resourceful, and even more than that, they're constantly feeling it, and it allows them to feel each other's blood and sense people and that kind of thing. I don't know. It's a good tool if you recognize what tools you have to create a better sensory experience. People are going to be invested in your world and feel like they're actually there, which is important and really interesting. And a third thing I learned, and this is more maybe emotional, but why not? Because that's kind of the journey of this story, is not so much the destination, but the fighting that it takes to get there. It's almost like reading therapy, but they're not in therapy, you know? I found that if you want your grief to feel real in your story, then take your sweet time with it. That can be really painful, but also accurate and beautiful and right to the heart. The story is structured kind of in 2 parts, where the first leads up to something climactic, and then the second is like an emotional climax, where you have to go through the grief and pain that these characters are going through. Some quotes that I appreciated that just highlight the effectiveness of the grief in the story. These just nail it. The first quote is, "A person's tragedy doesn't define them or cancel all the good in their life." And the second is, "Wholeness, she had learned, was not the absence of pain, but the ability to hold it." Misaki goes through a lot. She experiences loss, both of loved ones and of a life she didn't get to live. It may not seem thrilling if I explain it, but when you're with those characters, you want them to figure it out. You want them to like snatch on each next good thing, because honestly, for some parts of it, there isn't much. But it teaches you like there always is. And tragedy does not take away the good, despite the fact that it is tragedy. When it comes to your writing, or my writing, or whatever, it's, I think, important to recognize that you're writing people, most likely, or personified things at least, and they need to react. We all need to react, and we don't give each other that enough, and we need to give that to our characters. Allow them to feel and to be loud and ugly and sad and upset, and it's what makes these characters feel so relatable. But yeah, that is my spiel on The Sword of Kaigen. It's a book that I bought on Kindle and will be buying physically when I feel like it, because I loved it so much. I highly recommend Emma Wang's work. She's wonderful. This is a wonderful first read of this author, and I'm looking forward to more, but this will be dear to my heart for a long time, and that is what I learned.